Hey friends, everyone, how you doing? This is Joe Graham. So I just got back, well, not just got back, but probably about a week ago I got back from the most recent Republican Washington Governor Candidate Forum, which was not a debate, recently. And so I got the first opportunity to really hear all four candidates talking about their particular positions and what their thoughts were on the various issues that are facing Washington State. It was interesting. It was introspective. I invite you to take a look at the entire meeting in its entirety, and then there's a lot of other interviews and things like that are going on. But this is the one that I went to, and so I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I had from this particular meeting. And there's something in particular that I wanted to share with people that I thought was kind of interesting. So I don't know pretty much any of these men on a personal level. I haven't really spent much time with them, but I know that they have a lot of supporters and things like that. So my purpose is not to alienate any supporters, but I just wanted to kind of point out something that I had seen that I thought is kind of insightful about a couple of these men. And the first one was in this clip, really largely has to do with Loren Culp, and just something that I noticed about him and his character that I thought was just kind of insightful, and maybe you can kind of take with it what you will. But the first thing that I noticed as just listening to Mr. Culp or Chief Culp talk was that the first thing that you need to know is that he is most certainly not a politician.
I've not been a politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm not real good at making word salad. In my opinion, we're in the position that we are because of career politicians. I detest most politicians, and then they do something else when they're in office. We see that time and time again.
So I think that was just kind of plainly obvious that he was not a politician. Interesting. Also, there was a clip in there. If you go to I could give you a link. You can see the whole thing. Something funny that Tim Eyman said. And Tim Eyman and Phil Fortunato, those guys are funny. Okay, they're this natural kind of comedic, pacing that they're able to pull off, which I thought was kind of funny. But Tim had said this thing that was just so funny, and maybe particularly a little bit revealing, but it was kind of interesting when it happened.
I'm not a wealthy man. The state has pretty much taken every penny I have. And so the reality is I'm going to be in government housing one way or another after this election, either Section 8 or in our governor's mansion.
Anyway, so it was just, it kind of got me. Anyway, but this is the clip that I really wanted to show you, that I really want you to kind of see and get a feel for what kind of impression I'm getting from Loren Culp. Now, this is not to say necessarily that I don't think he can do this job, but just that I thought in this environment it was a little bit insightful. And what happened was essentially there was the forum where people were getting asked all these individual questions, and then at the very end they were allowed to start asking questions of each other. So one candidate was able to ask questions of the other. And this is the very first question that comes out. And so Chief Culp has this first question, and it's kind of his opportunity. And I think they knew that they were going to be allowed to ask questions. So I mean, everybody has the opportunity to kind of like maybe preset some that they're looking for. And so this is the one that Chief Culp picked. So check this out.
Okay, what do you feel the meaning of Article 1, Section 7 is, and how will you apply it when you're governor?
Okay, so right off the bat, this is a very, very specific question. Now, I've listened to a couple other of Loren Culp's talks or live videos or whatever since then, and so the Article 1, Section 7 is a big deal for him. So I think probably a lot of his followers, they kind of know what it is because it's something that he anchors on. But for the candidates, I'm sure that not all of them are following everything that the other candidates are saying. They have too much to do to try to do that, and again, the rallying cry, I guess, has been that they're all trying to focus on Jay Inslee. So Anyway, but just the way that the question was phrased or worded, it doesn't lend itself to the opportunity for you to actually give a substantive answer about the particular issue. So in that sense, it's not really a question about what the issue is that you're trying to determine about the other candidates, but in a sense, it's kind of like, let's see if you really know your Constitution. And then, Joshua Freed, he's the first one to respond, so this is what happens.
Joshua Freed?
Do you want to say what Article Section 7 is? It's like a gotcha question. I got you. So what is Article Section 7?
So of course, Joshua Freed is like, hey, so do you want me to actually answer this question with some, clarity, or are you just trying to make us all look like idiots, right? Because that's what a gotcha question is. It's basically, it's a question that's, the purpose is not to actually get an answer, but the purpose is just to make all of your opponents look like idiots. And so Josh, gives Chief Culp an opportunity to say, do you want us to actually answer this question, or is this what you're just trying to do? So again, remember, Chief Culp is not a politician. Like, you have to remember that. He said it.
I've not been a politician. I'm not a career politician. In my opinion, we're in the position that we are because of career politicians. I detest most politicians.
Numerous times, right? He's not a politician. So maybe he really does want a substantive answer. So, I'm hoping that he's going to clarify, and then this is what happens.
You're running for governor, and you're going to swear an oath to the Constitution.
Okay, so maybe he doesn't exactly want a substantive answer. So the man who's not a career politician...
I've not been a politician. I'm not a career politician. I detest most politicians.
Is being very political at this point. So, just kind of really insightful. Anyway, we'll play the rest of the clip and see how the three men respond.
So,
the awkward pause there was kind of funny too, a little bit, because it's just like, okay.
all right, so I'll answer the question in a different way. I look forward to representing the citizens of Washington. I think it's appropriate that we have a fair and honest debate. I like what Tim is saying, that we should be working together to be having our focus on Jay Inslee. There's been unfortunate mistruths that have been spread forward by your campaign that I think are terribly inappropriate.
Thank you.
And you're playing the game.
Senator Fortunato.
So, yeah, I guess there's some stuff that's going back between the Freed and Culp campaigns. Again, I don't know everything that's happening, but you can tell a little bit, like, that Josh Freed's a little bit kind of fed up with Culp's non-political tactics.
When I first wanted to run for office, my political mentor gave me a test. He made me read the state constitution and gave me a test. One of the questions was, does the state constitution prohibit an income tax? And most people think it does, but it actually doesn't. What it has is a uniformity of taxation clause. What it prohibits is a graduated income tax. And Article 2, Section 16 is my favorite, which says if you're an elected official 15 days before and during session, you can't be arrested for minor crimes.
Tim Eyman.
Speeding tickets.
All right, so Phil Fortunato just talks about something totally random. I'll just talk about something else. Since we don't really have a question where we're allowed the opportunity to answer anything of substance, I'm just going to use this opportunity to talk about whatever I want to talk about. That's kind of sort of somewhat related. So, kind of a political maneuver, but that was the way that the question was posed, so that's what you get.
I would clearly enforce all aspects of the Constitution. I'll be honest, I have no clue what Article 1, Section 7 is. I'll just admit it. But all constitutional rights are critically important. I absolutely believe that any of us is going to uphold the Constitution. Jay Inslee will not for the next 4 years. I passionately believe the fundamental problem we have in the state of Washington is we have a governor that doesn't respect us anymore. And I do. I've done it for 22 years. I would ask for your vote as well.
Okay, so after the entire forum was over, I had the opportunity to talk to each candidate, and so I talked to Tim Eyman about it, and like the first thing that he says, at the end of this, and he's like, do you know what Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution says? And I said, Tim, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. And then we kind of laughed. And I said, the only thing you could say, which is exactly what he did say, is that he said, I just want you to know I completely and totally support the Constitution, everything that's in the Constitution, which, what the heck else are you supposed to say? It's like, it's a gotcha. It's totally a gotcha question. So I just thought it was kind of funny. And then the same thing with Joshua Freed. He was like, Article 1, Section 7, are you kidding me? So I was like, what are you gonna do? So anyway, they were all kind of talking about it and just kind of no, whatever. I guess that's the game that Chief Culp is playing. So I didn't think that it was meant to actually forward a discussion or things like that. Like it was kind of it wasn't even an incisive question. It was just a question meant to make the other people look bad, which I didn't think was all that great. But then, really, the coup de grace, the cherry on top of the icing of this terrible cake that Chief Culp is serving up is what he says after it's over. Now, mind you, they aren't supposed to answer their own questions, but Chief Culp decides to go ahead and give give a little bit of insight into exactly what it is that he was thinking when asking that question, which is his right. But this is what happens.
Article 1, Section 7 says that no citizen shall be disturbed in their private affairs. And that needs to be abided by. I realize that not everyone has the Constitution memorized. I don't have the whole thing memorized.
Okay.
But it's something good to study up on.
Thank you. All right,
bet.
thank you.
Well, thanks so much for that. That's really helpful. So what you're telling me is that you did know what it meant and what it said, which, since I've heard him talking about it in other speeches, he obviously knows what it is. And secondly, you don't even have the entire Constitution memorized? I mean, that's the only moral authority high ground that you have at this point based on this particular question, is that you have the entire Constitution memorized, and woe to all those other candidates that do not have it memorized. And then you turn around and say, well, I don't really have it memorized either. So the maneuver was completely political, and there was no purpose in actually substantiating some sort of discussion about the actual content, which might have been a useful discussion because, hey, I mean, we just had the masks order that came out from Inslee. I mean, a disaster, right? They're totally infringing upon our ability to exercise our constitutional freedom. So again, like Article 1, Section 7 says, no person shall be disturbed in his private affairs or his home invaded without authority of law. So, I mean, so the Article 1, Section 7 question is a good question. It is a good discussion point, but the fact that he didn't actually give the context behind it meant that none of the candidates could really talk about it. Now, obviously, this is happening before the new mask order that came out from Overlord Inslee. But the point is that the whole "I'm not a politician" thing is not holding any water. I mean, does anybody really believe in that anymore at this point? Anyway, that was my thoughts, and so I'm not really happy with how that was going. I'm not currently supporting Loren Culp, and and if he ends up out of the primary, it's going to be something I'm going to talk to him about. Is that I understand that we're in a war for the gubernatorial seat of the state, but we need to be above reproach in this. And then yes, we need to be fighting against Jay Inslee, but we're going to need the support of all of these men and all of their constituents and all of their supporters. And it doesn't really benefit us to try to ostracize each other and things like that. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Happy to hear what you guys think too. But there you go. Have a good day. Take care.